Prime Minister of Canada, the Right Honourable Stephen Harper.
Thursday, you were in Prince Edward Island, and you said you weren't in a position at that time to talk about specific measures. But you did say your government was going to, quote, take concrete steps to expedite the process of resettling Syrian refugee families. Then on Saturday on the House, your Defense Minister Jason Kenney said, quote, faster processing, an accelerated streamlined system, and more support to get more people here quickly. So I have a two-part question. When can Canadians expect to hear more on what you and your Defense Minister promised last week? And then finally, you've spoken to many Canadians about this issue, I'm sure. Do you think Canadians want more Syrian refugees here in Canada?
I think the government's policy, to answer the last half of the question, I think the government's policy is a clear reflection of the views of most Canadians, that we are prepared to take an increased number of Syrian refugees, as we have already announced. But they also expect us to do that in a way that makes sure we prioritize the most vulnerable ethnic and religious groups, and that we do security screening and protect our country. I think that is what Canadians want. Also understand that we cannot even come close to dealing with this problem through refugee policy alone. That's why we're providing humanitarian aid, and that is why we continue to proudly participate in the fight against the terrorist group ISIS in the region. That's got to be part of it. We have announced an increased number. We think is certainly reasonable and in line and keeps us in the front of the pack in refugee resettlement. We have announced humanitarian support, and in fact now have created a matching fund so Canadians can share in their generosity on this. And as I said before, we will, in the not too distant future, announce measures to expedite the process for arrival and bringing Syrian refugees here.
Awesome. Yeah. Mr. Harper, thank you for taking my question. We're now just past the midway point in this election campaign. You have the largest campaign war chest. You've announced a surplus. You've been hammering home the message that your opponents would lead this country into a Greek-like crisis. And yet you're still stuck in a virtual three-way tie with your opponents. Why are you not further ahead in public support? And are you concerned that the message is not resonating?
Look, I'm not a campaign analyst. I don't necessarily accept that view. My view is that the choice in this election is clear. I don't think Canadians want tax increases. I don't think they want a return to deficits, and I don't think Canadians are going to believe when they reflect on it that going to an economic policy of return to deficits, to big deficits and tax increases is going to help our economy. I think they understand that this country has done well through a series of ups and downs in the global economy, through a long-term plan that cuts taxes and balances budgets, and I think that's the direction Canadians are going to want to continue.
From the Canadian Press, please.
Morning, Prime Minister. The numbers show the government was running a surplus while the country had dropped into recession. Traditionally, the thinking is governments should be spending during tough times. So what is the role of government money during a recession?
Well, let's be really clear. We were running, our economy grew last year. Our economy is going to grow again this year. You know, right here I'm in British Columbia. There is no recession in British Columbia. There has been no recession in British Columbia. Today to Alberta, where there is a recession. And we know why there's a recession. It's not because the government ran a $2 billion surplus. There's a recession because oil prices have fallen by half. And the recession has been made worse because the NDP government came in and followed up by raising taxes on everybody. You know, who thinks in the world, other than Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, that a $2 billion surplus in Canada could provoke a worldwide fall in oil prices? I mean, seriously. Seriously. Do they not get what they do not get? They think that somehow, under these conditions, plunging the country back into deficit for years to come would be a good thing. Canadians get that given the turmoil in the world, the fact that we have a budget balance, that we're going to keep that balance, is a good thing for this country.
You've set up a number of targeted tax credits, often referred to as boutique tax credits. And economists say that's actually a burden on the tax system and that broad-based tax credits are far better. Why do you think that boutique tax credits are better?
First of all, we have done some broad-based tax reductions. We've done broad-based tax reductions for all Canadians through our reductions to the federal sales tax from 7 to 6 to 5%. That is the broadest based tax reduction anyone's brought in history. We brought in broad-based tax reductions to our employers, not just to large businesses, but to small businesses. And in this campaign, we are fighting to put those farther down and to keep those because the other countries want to raise taxes on job-creating businesses, and we do not. That's a big difference. On terms of all the other credits, look, I don't think most Canadians are finding their tax forms harder to fill out. I think on the contrary, they are glad to take advantage of these things. These are real help, not just to seniors, but to students, to families, to people who use public transit. These are good things for Canadians. I know the other guys don't like them. We're not going to let them take them away. We're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep these tax credits for Canadians.
Thank you.
Two poor protesters smiling for the camera. Yeah, hi, how's it going?